like, smoking weed and stuff in the house. He decides to make money. He's going to start a horticulture uh, business in my living room. So he brings, a tree, a medical marijuana tree into my living room, starts growing stuff. And, I say things to him like, I don't know if you should be doing that. Like, I don't know. And this isn't something that I've ever experienced. Like, my parents weren't into drugs. It's not anything that I was ever familiar with. Especially bringing the dang on plant into my house, So I was just like, I mentioned it to him, but I kind of just let it be. I was like, okay, whatever. And because in relationships, we try to minimize things, and we don't like to make big. He had a forest in my living room. Exactly. You try not to make a big deal about things, even things that are a big deal. You try to minimize. Well, I was trying to minimize at that point. I don't know why. So he's doing his business in my living room. He's making these drop-offs, leaving and going and making these drop-offs. And, I'm kind of getting to a point where it's like, what am I doing? Like, why? This is not good. Like, I can't even invite my family over because you have a rainforest in my living room. So it started to bother me more so when I became limited, when the things that I would normally do, I couldn't do anymore. We look for the good, push the red flags and bad away. Yeah, we do. We do. And so we eventually moved, to a new place and, together. And, I still didn't put him on the lease though. Hey, Ambassador Moore, I still didn't put him on the lease. He wasn't on the lease, you guys. I was the only person on the lease, and that must have been the Lord telling me, girl, don't you do it. Right. So, he wasn't on the lease, but he was living there with me. He might as well have been on the lease. He was living there with me. And so I'm still working full time. I'm still, going to school full time. And, I had evening classes. So one night, I'm like packing my backpack, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to see you later. I'm going to school. And I think he might have been drunk. I don't remember clearly, but he just was not in a positive state, a positive frame of mind. So yes, God still gives us wisdom, even in dark situations, right? Even in our mess, God is still looking out for us. But so he approaches me, and I'm in the bedroom with my backpack on. He approaches me, and he's like, "You're not going anywhere." And this is totally out of the blue, completely random. Like, we weren't having a fight. It was just random, right? So he's like, "You're not going anywhere." And I was like, I kind of have to go to school. So I was like trying to, push my way around him to get out of the bedroom. And he pushes me onto the bed with my backpack on. And he's like, "No, you're not going anywhere." And I'm like, no, I'm like, seriously, no, I need to go to school. Like, I have class, I have midterms, or whatever I was saying. Like, I need to go. And, so I get up off the bed, and I'm like trying to make my way out again. I'm like, stop. And at this time, I'm like, all right, stop. Like, for real. Like, I gotta go. And he pushes me like with his leg, like bottom of his foot, and push. He pushed me back onto the bed. So I was like, all right, no. At this time, I was like, he's not playing around. Like, something's wrong, and he's trying to like really do some harm. So I get up again, and I'm like, now we're like, I'm grabbing his arms, he's grabbing my arms, and we're doing this, that whole pushing and pulling type of thing. And I'm like, leave me alone. And he kicked me again, so I fell on the floor. And at this time, so I'm crying. I'm like, all right, like crying like in disbelief. Like, I wasn't crying out of pain or like being hurt, but I was like crying out of disbelief and like, what in the world what is wrong with you, you know? And so now I'm in his face, and I'm not like a in your face cuss you out kind of person. I'm not a good cusser. I'm like nothing, none of that, you know. So I'm in his face, he's in my face, and we're like, I'm trying to tell him like, what are you doing? Like, why are you doing this to me? And he's saying something, I don't even know what he's saying. He's saying something, yelling, and I rip myself away, and I'm like, if you're gonna hit me, then hit me. But if not, just get out. And I'm crying and ugly and a mess and backpack on me. And I guess it shook him, or he kind of just like realized what he was doing, and he moved, and I was able to leave. And as I was leaving, I was like, you better not be here when I get back. And I left. You know, this was an ex before my husband, but I'm sharing this story for those of you who just joined. I'm sharing this story because this is Domestic Violence Month, and there are a lot of people who suffer through domestic violence alone, and it's hard sometimes to recognize the signs. And we as friends, you know, it's hard for us to recognize the signs too sometimes, even though we know something is going on. Sometimes it's not as easy for us to pinpoint signs of domestic violence. So that's why I'm sharing this with you today, for those of you who just joined. Gifted XO, she suffered through it a year ago. Yeah, so I mean, so you know, it's hard to, when you realize that this is what you're going through, that you are now a victim, it's a hard thing to deal with. It's a hard thing to swallow, and it's a hard thing to admit and share with people. But thank you for sharing that with us, Gifted XO. So, we overlook a lot of red flags leading up to it. You're so right, Tammy. You're so right. So, you know, I told him he better not be back by the time I get back home. I ended up not coming home that night. And when I came home the following day, he wasn't there. I immediately ran to Home Depot, got the locks changed. And I was, fortunately, I was the manager of the apartment complex at that time. So, like, I didn't have to ask anybody. I just did it, you know. So I changed the locks, and I went for a period of time without hearing from him, and so I was like, okay, I'm in the free, you know, things are good. Yeah, he verbally abused, and then he physically abused. Yeah. So thanks, Nika, my cheerleader over there. So I guess it was probably about a month or so that I wouldn't say a month. It was probably like maybe 3 weeks or so that I didn't hear from him at all. Then he started calling again, and I started to realize that he was very much still interested in being back in my life, being back in the picture. Mama O was in an abusive relationship 10 years, lost everything except my life. Now I'm a counselor. Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. Congratulations. 10-year anniversary, right? Congratulations. So the final straw that broke this camel's back is we were invited to a mutual friend's birthday party at a restaurant, and I drove to, and I had maybe talked to the guy a few times on the phone, but hadn't seen him prior to this. So I drove to my friend's house. We carpooled, us girls carpooled to the restaurant. He shows up at the restaurant sober. By the end of our time there, he's drunk. And I have to carpool back to my friend's house to get my car with the girls, and he decides he wants to get in the car with us. So everybody makes room for him because he's a mutual friend, and he happens to find himself sitting next to me, right? So, and I hadn't shared any of what we had gone through with my friends, because it's just not something that you do. You guys, for whatever reason, it's just not something that you do. In most cases, when you're a victim like this, you don't tell people. As unfortunate and as stupid as it is, we don't tell people. So anyway, my mom didn't know, my brothers didn't know. If my brothers knew, it would have been a whole different story, but I didn't tell anybody. My dad didn't know. So anyway, my friends don't know that this is, yeah, you do. You feel like it's a private situation, and you don't want to drag more people into your drama. So anyway, we leave the restaurant, everyone in the truck, excuse me, and we get back to the apartment where my car is parked. So I get out of the truck and I'm like, all right, guys, see you later. I'm going to go home. I'm tired. I have to work tomorrow, whatever I said. And he hops out of the truck and comes up to my passenger door, and he gets in. And I'm like, and he's drunk. Yeah, your Decadent Noob says this is really hard to hear. Well, it's hard to talk about too. It may not seem like it, but it's kind of hard to talk about. So he gets in the car, and he's like, let's go. So I'm like, God, here we go again. And I think my key was in the ignition, and the car might have been on. I don't remember now, but so he's in the passenger with me regardless, and he's like, yeah, let's go. So I'm like, no, I'm going home by myself. He's insistent that we go. He comes with me. I'm like, no. So I can see that he's starting to get more aggressive about it. So I in one fell swoop, just pull my key out of the ignition, grab my bag, open the door, get out, close the door, all in this one motion, as quick as I can. And I start walking fast to my friend's front door. And she lives on the second floor of this apartment building, of course. And so, I hear him get out of the car, slam the door, and start running. So I'm like, oh man. So I start running, and I get to the bottom of the stairs, and I am running up the stairs, and I have this trench coat on. So he catches up to me, grabs the collar of my jacket, and drags me down. And I'm like, oh no. No, he did not just drag me down these stairs, but drugged me down the stairs. So I'm crying, I'm screaming, and I try to run back up the stairs again. And I think this time I got up to the top of the stairs, and he drags me again. And I'm screaming and yelling. The apartment building, the way it was set up is there's a stairway, and then there's an apartment here and an apartment here. So apparently nobody was in or opening the door or even cared in this other apartment, but the apartment that my friends lived in, she opened the door, and I'm like, let me in, let me in. And by this time I'm trying to cuss him out, and I don't know how to cuss right. So I'm trying to cuss him out, and I'm like, leave me alone, and pushing him. And so my friend opens the door. I squeeze in through the door. She shuts it and locks it. And she's like, what's going on? What? And he's banging on the door, and he's like, get out here, and yelling and making a big scene, like Cops. This is an episode of Cops. I'm like, this is not my life right now. This is not it felt like it was a movie. It felt like I was an out of body experience, So, I mean, fortunately I wasn't hurt. I might have been hurt, but I was just such in a state of mind of disbelief and pain because of just not realizing that, or not understanding how he could do something like this to me. But yeah, pain and disbelief, and just completely out of it. But so he's downstairs beating my car. He knocks the side view mirror off. He's kicking the tires, trying to knock out the windows. It was crazy. And so, at that point I was like, I can't do this anymore. Obviously my friends knew what was going on, and I was like, I can't. And what hit me so clearly that night was, how could I allow myself to be with someone like this? And what would have happened if we got married and we had a daughter, and she saw her father treating her mother like this, hitting her mother, beating her mother, because it would have just gotten progressively worse, verbally abusing her mother. What would she expect from a man out of life? And it was that realization that I was like, I can't, I cannot, not for my sake, but for my future children's sake. No, this is not going down. No. So that was the final thing for me, that was like, I can't, no, I'm good. I can't. And, he's continued calling